This is He Knows His Sport, bringing you that heat and that fire. Da, 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 T'Chaka. I just had to wear my Black Panther shirt today, Um, Today, this video, I want to talk to you guys. I know it's been a while since I've made some health videos, but I wanted to talk to you guys about why I stopped taking black seed oil, period, and why I don't take apple cider vinegar regularly. And here's the reason why. You know, in this health journey, I've learned in life that there's no such thing as taking anything on a regular basis. There's nothing that you should take that supposedly is supposed to be healthy for you um, on an excessive basis. Everything in life has to have some kind of homeostasis, some kind of equilibrium, or some kind of balance. What do I mean when I say that? Meaning that you should not take something on a constant, on a regular, just because it's healthy for you. There should be a weaning on and a weaning off period. Me, when I went on my journey of the black seed oil and the apple cider vinegar, I took it straight regularly for 9 months. I'm not asking anybody else to do that because of the fact that I was looking at the extreme, weight loss benefits associated with black seed oil and associated with apple cider vinegar. Am I here to basically, disinterest people or to tell folks to not take black seed oil or apple cider vinegar? No, that's not my place to tell people not to take those products. Actually, those products are beneficial and they are helpful. What I'm trying to educate you guys and the masses on is there's no reason to be taking these products regularly because just like anything else, when you take it regularly, eventually you'll develop side effects from taking it regularly. So, just so that you guys understand, there's nothing on this planet, regardless of how healthy they promote it to be or how healthy they say that it is, that you should be taking regularly. There should be periodic intervals in which you take products, especially dietary products or products that have some form of supplementation. And the reason why I'm saying this and the reason why it's important that you guys understand this is because, anything that you take excessively or on a regular basis, again, it can have side effects. And in another video, I will talk to you guys about the side effects of taking black seed oil and apple cider vinegar regularly and not taking it in periodic intervals, which would be beneficial to your weight loss. Now, I wanted to talk to you guys about um, the benefits of intermittent fasting. I didn't realize I was doing this in my, health journey, but basically I've been doing IF for, I would say, well over 2 years, probably about 2 years and 6 months. And I've seen tremendous results in taking IF. I mean, as you guys can see, if you guys can look at, my videos from the initial one in 2013 up until now, you guys can see how, my body has gone through some transformations and some changes. Obviously, in later videos, I'll discuss, what else I've been doing to ensure that I have balance and again equilibrium and homeostasis all across the board when it comes to my health. But the main thing is intermittent fasting. As I started doing more research and I started reading up on it, and I started realizing that, hey, I'm waking up every day. I'm not eating until like close to noon, possibly 1 o'clock. And I didn't realize I was doing that. Now I don't go as far as noon or 1 o'clock. I probably eat maybe around anywhere between 10 and 11. But every night I've been noticing that, I stop eating anywhere between 8:30 to 9 o'clock. Sometimes I'll probably stop eating as late as 10. And then I don't eat the next day until 10:30 to 11, give or take. Now, I just want to educate you guys on intermittent fasting. There's different levels of intermittent fasting. Like I told you guys, Shout outs to Meek Mill. There's levels to this stuff. There's the 16-8, which is the standard one, that a lot of, health gurus, a lot of fitness athletes, and a lot of folks, prescribe to. But there's different levels. There's 16-8, there's 15-9, there's 14-10, there's, what is it? Yeah, 15, yeah, let me say that again. There's 16-8, there's 14-10, there's 15-9, there's 13-11, there's 12-12, and there's 10-12, and there's 11-13. The reason why I'm telling you guys this is because I want you guys to understand, the different hours in intermittent fasting. I would recommend anyone that's starting intermittent fasting to not just jump into a 16-8. I believe that you should build yourself up to that. And I'm going to explain to you why intermittent fasting is important and why you should consider doing it. First of all, you have to understand how the body works. The body is in two phases. It's either in a feeding phase or it's in a digesting phase. What do I mean by that? The body is constantly working in two levels. Either it's constantly feeding itself or it's constantly working to digest itself. When you are in the feeding state, what that means is that once you start eating your meals and you're going throughout the day and every few hours you eat meals, your body is what's called in a feeding window. What that means is that your body is, constantly, needing calories, and it constantly needs energy so that it can sustain itself. Usually you'll find yourself getting hungry, throughout the day when you go to work. You find yourself getting hungry, when you're exerting a lot of energy, and it doesn't necessarily have to be, doing some kind of physical exertion, whether it's exercise and things of that nature. Using your brain requires you to, have to expel a lot of energy. Anything that requires your focus and your attention and your concentration, that's energy being burnt. So in that phase, when you're constantly in a feeding window, every few hours, your body sends a signal to you to tell you that you're hungry and that you need to eat food. Hence, once you've opened the feeding window and you start eating in that window, your body requires for itself to constantly be working to digest the food that you're eating. Now, there's this thing where, it's been status quo that people eat, and they eat every 2 to 2.5 hours. I don't believe that that's efficient, and I don't believe that that's good for the body. The reason being is because you have to understand, once you put a meal in your body, your insulin level shoots up. Everyone's insulin level in their bodies are different. If you wait every 2 to 2.5 hours to eat, what happens is that, your insulin level from the previous meal is still elevated. It hasn't gone down. See, the thing is, people have to understand, and this is me doing, a lot of research on this, is you should eat your meals every 3 to 4 hours. The reason why eating your meal every 3 to 4 hours is recommended and it makes the most sense is because your sugar levels shoot up again right after you eat your meal. Depending on the type of person that you are, depending on your fitness level, depending on your health, and also depending on the type of foods that you eat. That's another thing that's important, because there's a difference between eating healthy, nutrient dense foods, and there's a difference between eating garbage processed foods. And they affect your body in two different ways. Obviously one affects it in a very positive way, and the other one affects it in an extremely negative way. But then that's another thing that I'm going to talk about in another video, as I'm dishing out these health videos to you guys. But it's very important to understand that once your insulin level is elevated to a certain level, your body requires time to digest the food so that it can bring the insulin level back down to what's called baseline. Through my research and through my studies, anyone that's dealing with sugar issues, anyone that's diabetic, anyone that's dealing with issues, where their insulin level is high, it's highly recommended that you follow this program and that you eat, every 3 to 4 hours as opposed to eating every 2 to 2.5. The reason being is because when your insulin level is elevated and it's put at its most highest state, after you've eaten a meal, you need time to bring that insulin level down. If you eat every 2 to 2.5 hours, your insulin level hasn't gone down to the necessary levels for it to be called a necessary baseline. Obviously, the body needs anywhere between 5 to 6 hours to fully digest your meal. But the reason why 3 to 4 is necessary is because it brings the insulin level to a necessary baseline so that when you do intake your next meal within that 3 to 4 hour period, your insulin level is exactly where you need it to be at so that once it elevates again, it's not already at such a high and elevated state. This is something that I'm going to explain to you guys even more in another video, but I want you guys to understand that, insulin is very important in the body because when your insulin levels are out of whack, this is an issue that can cause diabetes. This is an issue that can cause heart problems. People don't realize how, when your insulin is out of whack, it causes your heart to beat, at a irregular rate, and it's not good for you. So the reason why I employ that you should, start going into intermittent fasting and also make sure that you take breaks in between your meals of every 3 to 4 hours when you are in a feeding state is so that it'll keep you regulated and it'll keep your insulin levels from not shooting up too high and it'll balance it out. This is very important. Don't take my word for it. Try it for yourselves. And for the intermittent fasting, for those who want to start getting into it, don't just jump into a 16/8. Take your time. And what I mean by that is, let's say for instance, you sleep 8 hours and then your feeding window is like 16 hours. Well, gradually start working towards making your feeding window less and making your fasting window more hours. What do I mean by that? Instead of having 16 hours to eat a meal, the next week, how about you say, I'm gonna have 15 hours. Then once you've been successful at gradually gaining that and attaining that, then cut your feeding window to 14 hours the next week after that, and then so forth and so on until you start getting into a 12-12. 12-12 is beneficial because in 12 hours, your body has fully digested everything out of its system from the last meal that you eat up until the next time that you eat a meal. 12-12 is a recommended fasting that I would recommend for people that, have jobs and that are working hard throughout the week. I would not recommend 16/8. The reason being is because that's too long of a gap for you to eat a meal. And let's say, for instance, you're doing rigorous work like construction work, or you're doing rigorous office work where you have to use your mind. Because believe it or not, both types of jobs, whether it's office based or a job where you're doing physical exertion like UPS, a correction officer, security, nursing, where you got to be on your feet at all hours of the day, doctors, where lawyers, accounting. All of these jobs require a lot of physical and a lot of mental exertion. I would not recommend a 16/8 intermittent fasting during that week of work, whether that looks like a Monday through Friday to you, or whether it looks like weekends, whatever your work schedule is. When you are working, I would not recommend 16/8. I'd recommend a 12-12. 12-12 is a standard fasting, and 12-12 would put you in a position to where you would lose weight adequately and you would start shedding pounds. In 12 hours, your body fully digests this food. I'm talking about it brings the insulin level to a complete baseline. Not an adequate baseline like when you're in the feeding state. It brings it down to a complete baseline. What that does is the body is now focusing on one focus. Because remember what I told you previously, the body has two things that it's doing. One, it's either working to digest your meal in a feeding state. Two, once you stop eating your meal and you're going into the, into the digestive state, it's working now to break down that meal. You understand? There's two things that the body does, and I'm going to repeat that again. Your body works in two ways. It's either digesting the food that you have eaten, or it's working to detoxify itself from the last time that you ate your meal all the way up until you eat your next meal. Hence, that's why they call it breakfast, right? In the morning, because you have broken the fast from the previous fast from the night before. The reason why you want to employ intermittent fasting is because it will do three things. It's going to, one, extend your lifespan. That's going to be very crucial. Two, it helps with cognitive functioning. Believe it or not, those who employ or have a lifestyle of intermittent fasting, they think more clearly, they can concentrate better, and they can focus on things in life in a better and a more successful and a more efficient manner. And three, what intermittent fasting does, it allows your body to rid itself of everything that you've eaten the day prior. You know, you think about, the cavemen back so many thousands of years ago, and the way that they ate. They didn't follow a regular schedule. These people weren't eating every 2 to 2.5 hours. They weren't eating 6 meals a day. They ate when they could. But if you go back and think about it, they lived a very long life, and they were healthy, and they didn't have, a lot of the health ailments that we have nowadays. Reason being is because they allowed their body to rid itself of, the stuff that they ate for long periods of time, long periods of hours. And when they finally ate, they didn't eat highly processed foods. They ate foods that had nutritional density, foods that were going to hold them. You see, and that's the thing people need to understand. There's a difference between eating foods that have nutritional density and eating highly processed garbage, mechanical foods that they have made in some kind of lab. What do I mean by nutritional dense foods? These are foods such as nuts, legumes, vegetables. And when I talk about vegetables, I'm talking about cruciferous vegetables. I'm talking about leafy green vegetables. I'm talking about berries, and I'm talking about seeds. All of these things are very crucial for the body. Oh, and to add beans as well too. The reason being is because when you eat these types of foods, what it does is it helps with cognitive functioning. Your brain is your strongest and most valuable muscle in your body, right next to your heart. When your brain is functioning at its maximum proficiency, what happens is it can send the proper signals to the rest of your body so that your body can function the way it's supposed to. I don't think you guys understood what I said. I'm going to say that again. The brain is the most important muscle in your body, right next to your heart, because your brain is basically the wisdom of your body. Your brain is the one that controls the body. It's the one that sends messages and signals to the body. Hence, when you're eating foods that are nutrition that has nutritional density and that are nutrient dense, what it does is it allows the brain to work at a maximum proficiency to send the right proper signals to your body. Hence, also on the other end, on the opposing factor, if you constantly engage in a sedentary life where you eat highly processed and garbage foods, What your brain does eventually is it's going to send the opposite effect. It's going to send improper signals to your body. Hence, this is how diseases are manifested. Hence, this is how cancers are formed, because the brain is not working in its maximum proficiency and it's deficient. So because it has caloric deficiency, it's going to send that same deficiency to the rest of your body. This is how the body works. This is why it's important to eat a well-balanced diet, and it's important to incorporate healthy habits. If you can do it from when you were a toddler and you were a little kid, that's even better. But it's never too late, especially those that are dealing with health ailments and health issues. Now is the time to make those changes. And intermittent fasting will help in that regard because it allows you basically to eat less in the day. This is the ultimate benefit of intermittent fasting, especially if you're a person that can't control your palate and can't control your mouth when it comes to food. When you eat less in a day, you're basically you're basically prohibiting yourself from putting extra food in your mouth. And this has benefits. Our ancestors have done this. Like I said, going back to the caveman phase, they've done this and they've lived long lives, well over 100 years. And I'm talking about feeling at that age the same way they did probably in their 20s. It's possible to have that going on right now, even with us, living in a time frame where we're filled with pollution around us, in a time frame where we have nothing but a whole bunch of highly processed foods. Does it take time? Is it going to take discipline? And is it going to take more reading as you go through, a supermarket and start reading through these aisles of what you're putting in your system? Yes, but it pays off. Just like dividends, it pays off in the long run. And that's what you want, in your life. You got to take your health serious. And intermittent fasting is beneficial in this sense. It helps your brain to function at its maximum proficiency. It helps with cognitive functioning. Two, it helps with your insulin level. Again, it helps make sure that your insulin level stays at a baseline, which is good for those who have high insulin levels and those who are diabetic. And again, I'm going to go more in detail. I'm just giving a general, overview of why intermittent fasting is something I think you guys should employ, and why you should add it into your lifestyle. And three, intermittent fasting helps with muscle development. That's right. You gain muscle when you do intermittent fasting, because what it does is while your body is going through that period of digesting itself and ridding itself, it's eliminating excess fat out of your body. And hence, it's keeping the muscle around. Yes. I know it sounds strange, that you're eating less in a day, but at the same time that you're eating less in a day, you're also, building more muscle. Don't go by my word for it. Do your own research. You'll see what I'm talking about. Because with intermittent fasting, there are a few things that you come to realize. It promotes testosterone production. It increases your testosterone levels. And that's both for males and both for females. Yes, females have testosterone in their bodies. They don't have it as much as males, obviously, but they have it in their bodies. What you want is you want your testosterone levels to be at its highest and most proficient, levels. It's important for that because when your testosterone is performing at its maximum proficiency, then it creates muscle building habits. It creates health habits in your body. The body is very smart. It's very intelligent. But at the same time, the body also requires maintenance. It's not going to think for itself in terms of what you put in your mouth. And it's not also going to think in terms of how long of a feeding window that you have. See, when you're constantly eating and you're not allowing your body to properly digest, you get your insulin levels to be completely out of whack. Not only does it stay out of whack, what ends up happening is it creates visceral fat. Visceral fat is not good because that's the type of fat that comes around your belly. This is the most dangerous fat that you can have in your body, because when visceral fat takes place, what ends up happening is it can creep up into your heart, and what it can do is it can clog your arteries. And when your arteries are clogged, what ends up happening is eventually you can get what they call a heart attack. That's eventually what can end up happening, because your arteries are not fluid. They're not, the blood is not flowing freely. So hence this causes high blood pressure, which is the first indicator. And then from high blood pressure, then eventually we're having that for for so long of a period of time, and having your insulin level spike for so long a period of time, then diabetes manifests. And then after diabetes manifests, then from that point on, then eventually, it ends up happening when you have that collaboration of issues that are untreated and not taken care of, you eventually can have a heart attack. And see, a heart attack used to be something that people used to have, in their 50s, in their 60s, in their 70s. Now, people are having these things in their late 20s, in their 30s, and in their 40s. Why? Because again, it goes back to this highly processed garbage foods that people are eating, and they're constantly keeping themselves in a feeding state. They're not allowing themselves to go long periods of time to allow the body to rid itself of the toxins and the garbage that they're eating. This is important, and I felt the need to have to talk to you guys, about this. And obviously I'm going to talk more in depth so that you guys can understand this, is because people need information. Knowledge is power, man, and people need to know these things. You gotta work on two things, and this is why I think intermittent fasting is going to be beneficial to you. One, you gotta work on finding ways to ensure that you eat less. Eating less is best. I'm gonna say that again. Eating less is best. Find ways to do that. And two, when you do eat, make sure you eat foods that have nutritional density, not foods that are filled with a whole bunch of oils, a whole bunch of grease, and a whole bunch of nonsense with it. What are the types of foods that would make sense for you to eat? Well, you should start incorporating bananas into your diet. Bananas are good because bananas have potassium in it. Bananas also have an enzyme called bromelain in it, which is extremely beneficial for male and female libido. Why is that important? Because it allows you to have, energy and function, again, to think cognitively and to be able to exert yourself physically throughout the day. I would recommend eating one banana a day if you can. Brazil nuts and almond nuts. These are the holy grail of nuts. If I was you, I would eliminate all other nuts out of your diet and incorporate just Brazil and almond nuts. Reason being is because these two nuts have the most minerals and vitamins in them. So when you eat them, you're getting the most benefit. Plus, Brazil nuts and almond nuts can hold you. They have nutritional density. This is the stuff that I'm talking about. Dark chocolate. And I'm not talking about that garbage dark chocolate that you see that's highly processed that they have at Walmart and all these other stores. No, I'm talking about dark chocolate where the cacao percentage is 70% and higher. This is important. Plus, when you're looking on the back of the dark chocolate label, you want to make sure that it doesn't have soy in it, because soy is not a good thing in terms of testosterone production. If anything, it does the exact opposite in inhibiting testosterone production. You want to make sure that it doesn't have anything that says that it's processed with alkali in it, because that's a form of processing. And you want to make sure that it doesn't have vanilla and all of these different extra additive sugars. You want to make sure that on the back of it, it says cacao, it says cocoa beans, and it says organic on it. The higher the percentage, the better the dark chocolate is. Me personally, I eat dark chocolate that's like 85 to 90%. The more bitter it is, the better it is. Eventually, you'll grow to that level, but I would recommend starting at 70%, because dark chocolate, what it also has that's beneficial is it's rich in fiber and it's rich, in other minerals and vitamins that's excellent for the body. Plus, dark chocolate helps with cognitive functioning. Berries. It's important to incorporate blueberries, strawberries, raspberries, and blackberries into your diet daily. Reason being is because berries have antioxidant properties in them. These berries are anti-aging. So, and plus, berries help with ensuring that your body, stays in a alkaline state, which could eliminate you from not having to worry about cancers and diseases and things of that nature. Oatmeal. Oatmeal is excellent, because oatmeal can help with aiding in lowering cholesterol. Oatmeal is also excellent because you need whole grain in your diet. And to me, it's the healthiest and most efficient way of putting whole grain into your diet. Also, oatmeal is good because it promotes and it increases testosterone levels. Yes. You see, you guys are going to see a direct correlation in all of the foods that I eat. They all have one thing in common. They promote and they increase testosterone levels. This is important because if you're eating foods that are nutritional, that have nutritional density and they promote testosterone levels, what are they doing? They're keeping you with all of your vitality and they're keeping you young, meaning it's reversing the cycle of you aging and it's slowing it down to a crawl, or it could reverse it to a point to where you start looking more youthful in your appearance and you start feeling a way more healthy. So I would also incorporate that into your diet. And also lean meats. What do I mean by that? Don't incorporate, don't incorporate porks and beefs of the worlds. These types of meats are extremely dangerous because what they do is they can clot your arteries and they can be extremely, unbeneficial to the body. If you're going to eat meats, I would recommend eating lean turkey, lean chicken, and also eating fish. More so on the fish and the turkey side, because nowadays, chicken, they've been processing these chickens in a ways and pumping them with all kinds of stuff. You don't know what you're getting out of chicken. So if you're gonna eat chicken, it needs to say that it's grass fed. It needs to say, that the chicken or the hen, was, eating grass. It needs to say that on the label. That's important because, in these farms, they don't prescribe to all of these, tough mandates and tough rules and laws. They're just trying to, the industry just trying to pump chickens out as fast as they can. Hence with eggs, that's another thing too. You want to make sure that your egg is grass fed, and you want to make sure that your egg says that it's organic. This stuff is important, man. You just don't want to pick anything off the shelf because, again, it's just like anything in life. You get what you pay for. And if you get something, and it's not, up to par, then guess what? It's not going to be up to par in your body. So, just like you could spend $300-400 on your hair, just like you could spend $300-400 on your nails, just like you could turn around and spend $300-400, going out, on some nice clothes. Why you can't invest and put that into your health? People always making excuses when it comes to their health. You should never make an excuse to your health because your health is your number one wealth. I'm going to say that again. Your health is your number one wealth, and there should not be excuses associated with that. That's something that you should be taking care of above any and everything else, because you have one life to live and it's YOLO. And bottom line is, how do you want to live your life? Do you want to be that person that's walking around here with health ailments, can't move around, sitting here and just moving around all gingerly, and just moving around like, like you're feeling old when you're really not that old? Or do you want to be that person that has full vitality, that can think, at maximum proficiency, that can feel youthful, and that can feel that this person is, alive and vibrant? Do you want to be that person? Well, there's some habits and some changes that you're going to have to make. This is why, going back again to intermittent fasting, it's important to eat less, because eating less is best. Intermittent fasting is beneficial on so many levels, because what it teaches the number one thing here: discipline. Because trust me, when you employ intermittent fasting, you have to have discipline. You know why? Because every day you got to go through that whole process of, hey, I can't eat for this period of time. So you know what that creates? You know what that builds? It builds a level of discipline. This is why I'm telling people to employ intermittent fasting first before they do anything else. Because once you employ intermittent fasting, you're building discipline habits. Now, what ends up happening is, once you've employed that and you have that foundational discipline, now you can start focusing on, the foods. I would not tell you to focus on healthy eating before passing intermittent fasting. Again, there's levels to this stuff. Intermittent fasting should be first on the list before we can go into healthy eating. Because here's the thing with people when they try to go into healthy eating. They go through phases, they go through ebbs and flows, and then eventually they stop it. But see, with intermittent fasting, it requires a level of discipline, because you have to do it the same thing every day so that you can continue to get the same results. And again, let me rewind, let me go back. Where do I recommend that you should start? If you're a person that has a feeding window of 16 hours, then go to next week when you're starting, shorten it to 15. Then week 2, shorten it to 14. Then week 3, shorten it to 13. Then week 4, shorten it to 12. And then once you shorten it to 12, you're going to be on the 12-12 cycle. Then once you get and graduated to that level of 12-12, that's when you're going to start reaping the maximum benefits of intermittent fasting. And then once you get to the level where you start doing it 12 hours of feeding window and 12 hours of fasting, then as soon as you've done that for about a month and your body has gotten comfortable and it gets used to it, because this is the other thing too that people don't understand. Once you start doing intermittent fasting, just like anything else in life, once your body, you've built it and you've created a habit, and this is what makes the human body and the mind so intelligent. Once you built that habit, and that habit is innate, what ends up happening is your body now wants to continue to follow that. So once you've mastered the art of doing 12 on and 12 off, then you can say, okay, let me experiment on the weekends or the times that is your version of a weekend, because everybody's weekend is not Saturday and Sunday. Your weekend could be Tuesday and Wednesday, or your weekend can just be a Friday. I don't know. Whatever your weekend is, then test yourself. Say, okay, I've done 12-12. Now on this, my version of a weekend, let me do 13-11, or let me do 14-10. You see what I'm saying? Gradually build yourself up to where you get to that level to where you can say, okay, I can do a 16-8 on my version of the weekend when I'm not doing much and I'm not exerting much physically and mentally. But then during the week, when I am exerting myself physically and mentally, I'm doing a 12-12. This is what I follow. I do 12-12 when I got to do a lot of physical exertion, a lot of mental exertion, and I do anywhere between a 14-10 to a 16-8 on a weekend where I'm not doing as much. The reason being, the reason why I extend it further when I'm not doing as much is, again, to balance it out. If I'm not doing as much and I'm not burning as much calories, then my feeding window should even be less. If I'm making my feeding window the same as if I'm, burning, if I'm making it the same as when I'm burning more calories and I'm not, then what ends up happening is there's the potential of putting your body out of whack. there's a potential of, gaining weight. Hence, you go into that next week and you've put on a few pounds. Yes, you want to stay balanced, you want to keep your weight regulated, and you want to keep everything the way it should, then I would employ, once you get to that level, again, I'm not telling you to do this right now. I'm telling you right now as a start off, build your way up. Go from 16 hours of feeding window to then a 15-hour feeding window to then a 14-hour feeding window to a 13-hour feeding window. And then when you finally get to 12-hour feeding window by week 5, then start to employ for that whole next month 12, 12, 7 days a week. Then after that month of employing it for 12, 12, 7 days a week, then test yourself and say, okay, now that I've done this, now my body's used to it. Let me do 12, 12 for the 5 days that I'm working hard. And then for the 2 days or the one day that I'm off, you could be 6 and 1. Let me do for that one day that I'm off and I'm not doing as much, a 13, 11 or 14, 10 or 15, 9 or 16, 8. Let me try that. And you guys are going to see how your body, your mind, and your soul is going to reap the most beneficial effects. Intermittent fasting is not something that should just be a fad. It should be something that you should employ and make a lifestyle change, and basically say that this is something that I'm going to do henceforth, or it's something I'm going to do moving forward. And I trust you, and I trust me, and I assure you, you guys are going to see productive and positive results. you know and in the next video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk further and more about intermittent fasting and why intermittent fasting is something that you should not only heavily consider, but something that you should start employing into your diet, because we were never meant on this earth to be people that's just constantly eating. The reason why people have the diseases and the cancers and all this stuff of the world is because they don't know how to control their mouth. They're constantly putting something in their mouth. And if you're constantly putting the time to put something in your mouth, then guess what? You're not putting that attention in other things that you should be in life. Hence, it's just like anything in life. You reap what you sow. So if you're constantly putting stuff in your mouth, then you can't be mad at what the results are going to be from doing that. Hence weight gain, hence obesity, hence cancers, hence diseases. These things happen. And trust and believe, you can also have issues doing that, eating healthy foods too. Yes, I said that. You can have these same issues eating healthy foods too if you're eating it in excess. Everything in life has to have a homeostasis, it has to have an equilibrium, and it has to have a balance. You can't eat too much of anything. This is Henosis Sport, checking out.